Hello, welcome to CaFae Convos. I am your host, C. Amalanji. The C stands for Chris or Christina. I don't care. Go with either one. And today we're bringing, I don't know, someone.
I
She's,
don't know you.
I mean, you're an author, I guess, but really your greatest achievement has been my existence.
I would love to furiously refute that, but it might almost be true.
Why don't you introduce yourself?
I don't see the point, frankly. Okay, my name is Maryjanice Davidson. My greatest accomplishment is apparently giving birth. I have also written a couple of books. The end.
A couple. Is it like 70 at this point?
Yeah, I have a backlist of 70 plus books. As you may recall, when you were younger, I constantly am on a laptop or a computer, and which is why television raised you and why you turned out so beautifully. And but yeah, I'm super prolific, and being an admin assistant for years and years, I type over 100 words a minute. So I just, and I, as you know, it's the best job in the world. There's nothing else we'd rather do with our time. So it's easy to be prolific when you do what you love. And of course,
I
my
mean,
daughter grew up. Sorry.
I'm in the pits of edits for Demon's Nest, so I'll agree with you a little more easily once those are done.
But and you grew up watching me, love writing and love books and love reading, and so it's to the surprise of absolutely no one that you yourself turned into an avid reader and of course a wonderful writer.
Thank you. Well, I have, oh, this is the wrong document. So I have collected, I'm a professional with this, I promise. I have
So I
collected
didn't mean to titter disrespectfully, but that's what happened.
like you're any better when you have to do your job.
Exactly.
So I have collected some questions from my patrons over on Patreon. If you would like to contribute to questions for a future CaFae Convo, join the Patreon. It's linked in the description of this video. Give me money and I will give you more content.
Oh, same, by the way, same.
Yeah,
Also
I'll link your stuff in the description too. Don't worry. So
Since we're asking for money.
I've actually divided these questions into 3 categories. We did have a lot, like I said,
at all. Great.
I'll try to blast through this. But we have writing questions, we have business questions, and we have more family questions.
Great.
Which would you like to start with?
You know what? Dealer's choice, babe. Hit me.
Dealer's choice. Well, considering what you last spoke of, let's bring out one of the family questions.
Okay.
How did you come up with the idea of using nicknames such as Dawn when referring to your kids, and what were they based on? Was there any worry or concern for their online or offline identity and security, which has since become a larger and more hot button issue with the advent of social media and the rise of family blog and vlog content?
That is a great question. Back in the day, I was warned, actually your father is the one who was like, you know what, so many people see your posts. You can talk about me all you want, but let's keep the info on our children to a minimum. And I also
sounds like something Dad would say.
Yeah. Oh, right. That doesn't sound familiar at all to you. You can't hear his voice in your head right now, and neither can I. Everything's fine. And I also had authors like Laurel K. Hamilton, who would actually be kind of shocked when I would bring you and your brother to my book signings. And she was like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure. I write funny and you write super dark. So I can see why you don't want your kid here, but I write funny." But yeah, it wasn't just, and this was, 10 years ago. This was, well,
I'm closer to 20. You know, I'm 30 now, right?
Oh God. Yeah, I knew that. Right. So, well, even before, I mean, today, obviously people are much more careful, but back then, yeah, I used the boy for your brother, and of
capital letters.
Yeah, the boy, both a capital, which is ironic because he's in his 20s now, and all my readers are like, "Tell us more about the boy. What's he's up to?" And of course, Dawn, you got your nickname when we were at the cabin, and your father and I foolishly left the house and left you in charge, and you kindly did the dishes, and you put
dish soap. If it has dish in it, it should be able to go in the dishwasher, okay?
Anyway, my daughter put Dawn dishwasher soap into the dishwasher, and we came home to a kitchen full of suds. So we teased her and called her Dawn for like a week, and then I ended up giving her that nickname all my social media stuff. So to this day, even though you're a grown woman and you're 30, all my fans are like, so how's Dawn, whose name isn't Dawn? Although these days I say my daughter Dawn, whose name is really Siamalanji.
Siamalanji, because I'm
So,
yeah, no, my best friend from college also calls me Dawn.
oh,
She was,
is it Alex? Is it Alex?
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So yeah, and
Well,
so it was partly for fun and partly for your safety, to be completely
mhm.
blunt. It was absolutely, I mean, you just never know. You just never know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm blessed with, I think you and I are both blessed with very positive and healthy fandoms. It's the
Absolutely.
internet. There are
Yeah.
creeps out there,
You
and
do
we
not,
exist
my,
as
your
women.
father would not let me do, your father was my royal taster. If I go to a book signing and he's with me and people bring me treats, he tastes them to make sure there's like no glass in there, which I'm not worried about in the
That
slightest.
sounds like BS. That
Yeah,
sounds like
right.
the husband version of the dad tax.
So anything my fans would ever give me that was edible, he would always be the royal taster. And yeah, that does sound a little like bullshit, but also, yeah, a smidgen of that was concern for my well-being, and also concern for cupcakes.
Yep, yeah, no, it's yeah. Well, and I also remember like as a kid, like something would, I never remember the details, but like I remember something funny would happen, or I'd say a funny story, or Liam would say a funny boy, would say a funny story. I'm blunt with names on mine because he's in his 20s, and I asked him, and he said he didn't care. Um, so, but he would say like, but like we would say a funny story, and everyone would laugh, and you would ask,
Yeah.
"Hey, can I write a Facebook post about this?"
Yeah.
And I don't recall ever saying no. I think my brother said no once.
Yeah. And I can't
That
even
was
remember
it.
why, but he was just like, you know what? I really feel like, I know you thought it was funny, but I feel like it's nobody's business. And I don't even remember what it was. But I respected
Exactly.
that.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, there are more creative ways to find content, and not everything has to be content. This is really hard for me to internalize these days as a content creator.
Yeah, yeah.
But
It's different for me. I don't, I didn't build my career online the way you have. So
yeah,
I had different options, and that's fine. So yeah, safety first, obviously, always.
definitely, definitely. On a on a follow note, there are the family questions were the most. Sorry.
That's awesome. That's cute. Well, how often we're mother and daughter, but we're colleagues.
That's true. Gosh, like I should, and I was surprised when I found out recently that I'm actually third generation author. Grandpa Tunafish has like published
Yeah.
articles on fishing or military or something, and I'm just like, oh my
He
god,
had a
I'm third
column.
gen.
He had a column in the Minot Daily News. It was a hunting and fishing column.
I did I was so fascinated when I heard
Yeah,
that.
yeah. No,
Um,
we didn't just inherit this stuff out of nowhere.
no, monkey see, monkey do. On that
Well, it's a
note, we had
less
a couple.
charitable way to put it, but yeah.
Hey, monkeys are awesome. They're
They are
adorable.
awesome. They're dangerous, but they're awesome.
Hell yeah.
Mhm.
Cute but deadly. That's
Yes.
like the best.
That's your sweet spot.
Hell yeah. We had a couple questions asking some flavor of what is it like having a kid who's also an author? Is it the typical kid following parents' footsteps kind of thing, or is it different for something like this? Which I guess is also a question for me. I'll let you go
Yeah,
first, though.
yeah. Well, honestly, you grew up reading when we started writing Dad and I started writing the Jennifer Scale series. We wrote it because I was getting so many children reading my grown-up Betsy the Vampire
Which, by
books.
the way, for the record, I still have not read
Totally
your
understandable.
national best-selling romance books because
Yep.
they're erotic romance,
Yep.
and no, thank you.
And they're based on, yeah, Sinclair is based on your dad. I don't blame you. Anyway, anyway, but you grew up reading galleys. We used to find them asleep on your face. I'd go in and tuck you in, and the galley would be on your face, and you just passed out reading it. Same with your brother. And what I love is that you assumed that because we were authors, we knew every author in the world. Remember asking me for Rick Riordan galleys, and me having to
Yes!
politely tell you, I'm sorry, I
Why
don't.
do I not have arcs from Rick Riordan? You failed me!
I know. And I'd be like, well, I don't know him, and I don't know his agent, and I can't. Anyway, so it wasn't a surprise at all that from that you grew into, I want to write my own stories. I want to. So once again, we weren't surprised at all, but I wasn't, and I never wanted to push it on you, but I'm so delighted that you are in the same career I am, and it's just been so cool seeing your frankly, meteoric rise. And I kind of came out of nowhere for readers too. And so it's just really, I mean, for perfect example, we're both going to the Mars conference in Bloomington next
Heck
weekend,
yeah.
where you
Yes. Oh,
will
it's gonna be so fun.
completely dominate me because you write more sci-fi than I do. And I can't wait. I know you're running like 8 workshops or something, right?
Yeah, I'm on a bunch of I always sign up for like I always like, they always give me a list. I'm like,
Yeah.
here are all the panels and stuff that we have, and I like, like I'm interested in like a dozen of these. So like whichever ones aren't clashing with each other, put me on. And like also I would like to do a reading and or signing too.
Yeah.
That
But
is always
yeah,
and
so anyway, so just to get back to that, so Mars, so again, yeah, and I wanted to bring it up. And both of us are going to be in Bloomington, Minnesota
Mhm.
next weekend for the Mars conference, which is a really good time. So if you're in the area, you should 100% come. But Mars was also the first time I ever saw your readers and your fame. To
Mhm.
wit, would you hold this so I can take a so I can? Would you
I know
hold
it
this
was
picture?
so fast. This was 3 years ago. Like it was like a month or two after it blew up. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, whoa, this is like 5 times in one day.
And it was the first place where I saw a fan lose their shit because you were the first quote unquote TikTok star they ever met. And they were just so, I mean, I was getting polite for the first time in my career. I was getting politely elbowed aside so people could take pictures with you and talk about you. And it was, as a colleague, it was a little irritating. As a mom, I was like, oh my God, they're completely ignoring me. I've never been prouder. And I can't wait to go next weekend with you. I think it's going to be a blast. It's a blast every weekend. And we're
It
colleagues
really
there
is.
and you just dominate there. And I love it. And it's so long answer short, which is too late. I fucking love that you're a writer and I love your fans and I love that they love you. And I just think we're just ridiculously blessed. We absolutely are.
Oh, definitely. We won the lottery on both sides. And it's like
Absolutely.
it's interesting because like I remember as a teenager when I was first making noises about I want to be an author for science fiction and fantasy. And it's not like I honestly don't know if it's like I'm doing it because like if you hadn't been an author, and also Dad is also a published author, although he's a
Yeah.
hobby writer compared to you being a career writer.
Hmm.
I honestly don't know if that would have happened, and frankly, I don't care.
Yeah.
Nature versus nurture type of thing. But it's like I do recall, like you're saying I didn't want to push you towards it, but I'm so glad. I'm like I don't recall you pushing me toward it at all. In fact, I remember you warning me explicitly of how rough it was, and like the whole like most the average author makes only like $5,000 a year,
Yeah.
and so that's
Yeah.
why
Isn't that
97%.
amazing?
I know, and even frankly, I'm still not technically a full-time author because it's my content creation that pays my bills,
Yeah.
not my royalties or the
Hmm.
advance payments for my books. It's like
Yeah.
those are nice bonuses, but I
Yeah.
can't use that to rely on my day-to-day living expenses because I will starve.
Yeah.
It's just impossible. But yeah, it was really handy because like you guys, I kept the nepotism to the bare minimum because
Yeah.
I didn't want like, I didn't want people to just publish me because, oh, it's Maryjanice Davidson's daughter. I didn't want your
I
agent
know.
Ethan to represent me.
You were religious as you are about few things, but you were religious about you. And I love how the Citadel contract, how you didn't say a word about how your mom was a New York Times bestselling author, your dad, published author. I love how you didn't say shit until you signed on the dotted line. And then you said, by the way, my mom, I, I love that. I thought it's a nice segue into what we're talking about. The Reluctant Reaper. It
Mm.
actually inspired The Reluctant Reaper, which is a book about Death's daughter, the original Nepo baby. And I just thought, well, what if, and I started, you were actually the first person I heard that phrase from. That's how out of touch I am. I have to hear these things from my kids. So you were like, well, I don't want anybody thinking, honest to God, I don't want anyone thinking I'm a Nepo baby. I'm like, yeah, I'm totally not looking that up on my phone. I totally agree with you. Oh, nepotism infant. Oh, that would be bad. And I started thinking about other Nepo babies. And then I thought, what if Death's daughter, what if a big reason she didn't want to take over the family business was, why should I take this job that I didn't earn? And that your experience inspired The Reluctant Reaper, which is why it's so cute that we're here on this talking about it right now.
Like I accidentally inspired Reluctant Reaper, but I purposely inspired the contemporary asset in the court of King Henry VIII
Oh yeah.
because because like for those of you guys who don't know, that is your few,
It's
if
my
you're
only
only
historical
sci-fi.
fiction novel. Yep.
Yeah, and it's the historical fiction because like you are such a Tutorphile,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to like Anne Boleyn, who for those of you who like are not as obsessed with this as my mother and I are, Henry VIII is the guy who had 6 wives. He's the father of Queen Elizabeth the First of Elizabethan age. And you know, he had 6 wives, divorce, you know, it's the divorce beheaded, died, divorce beheaded, survived
Survived. Yeah.
type of thing. Yeah, type of thing. If you haven't seen Six the Musical, it's not entirely historically accurate, but it is still really, really good. And they actually give Catherine Howard like actual real
Agency.
character,
Yeah.
which I love because it's like she is such a tragic figure and everyone just writes her as a slut, but it's fine. It's fine. We're okay. We're not talking about that. Anyway, I learned all that from mom. Like I got all that from mom. And but the thing is, I was just like, you know, it's such a shame that you can't write historical fiction because you would dominate with like a Tudor setting romance novel. And at the time, drunk history was super, super big. So I'm just like, but what if the narrator was contemporary because they're like some immortal who actually lived through it, or
Yeah.
like they're a time traveler or something like, or they're the descendant of
Yep.
something like that. Like make the narrator super contemporary
Modern.
and
Yeah.
silly and modern, and that would hit your voice so much better than if
And you were
if
right. You
you
were 100% right. A contemporary asshat at the court of Henry VIII, which, by the way, anyone you can get on Amazon. And if you're a member of Amazon Kindle Prime, it's free. Anyway, yeah. So it's a time traveler who goes back in time and has to fix this. You know, she has to give Henry the Heimlich so he doesn't die before he sires Elizabeth. She has to all these things, and it was so fun to write. And honestly, in terms of critical kudos, that's even more than the Betsy books. I probably got more kudos, more positive reviews in terms of the writing for that book than, and I would love to do, I want to do a trilogy. I want to do 2 queens per
yeah,
book. So that's on my list. I would love to do that. But yeah,
heck yeah.
actually, if you're a member of Amazon Kindle Prime, a ton of my books are free. So you should
Mhm.
definitely head over there and check it out.
Most of my followers are not.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine.
Either it's because we're all broke or they don't like Amazon.
Oh, that's fair. Oh, you know what? And these days, that's totally
Yeah.
understandable. And
We're
we
the
better be
social
really
justice
careful because
warriors. I'm sorry.
we should be careful too because that's a rant we could both go on for a while, and then we'll
Oh
get into
my god.
politics, and then it's just going to be a bloodbath.
Well, I mean, luckily I don't have, I so many of my fans or whatnot are just like, they are like, their family, they come from families that are, conservative or even straight up MAGA. And
Really, get out
yeah,
of town.
and oh yeah, no, so they'll be just like,
Oh,
I have cut off my parents, I have cut
oh,
off
that's
an
awful.
uncle.
That's
I
awful
like
that they're cutting off. Oh, you know
yeah,
what?
it's like
We
or
got
like
to be careful. We got, you know what? If this descends into politics, and
I'm
we're
so
on a time
political on
crunch.
this channel though.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Next question, please. Let's stick to our
fine,
list.
fine, fine. Okay. Let's move on to the business questions. This is a fun one. What
I'll be
was
the
it
judge of
like
that, miss.
what was it like trying to get a literary agent? Because you and I kind of had the same story.
Yeah. The irony is I didn't have much luck until I had a contract in hand. And
Same.
that's the I'm blanking on the phrase, the vicious circle. You can't get an
Yes.
agent without a book
It's just
contract.
cycle.
You think, what did I say?
Circle.
Circle. It's still
Base
a
same
circle.
GIF.
Yeah,
GIF.
not worth interrupting for. Uh, yeah, so you can't
Disagree.
get an agent without a book contract. You can't get a book contract without an agent. And when I just buried, I really lucked out. Undead and Unwed was an ebook first for a company that's actually out of business now. And this was 20 some years ago when nobody wanted to read on their Blackberries. Nobody wanted to read on their big clunky PCs at home. And nobody wanted to print out an ebook to read it. And those were your only options.
Yeah.
But I was happy to get a contract, and I was delayed, Undead and Unwed. And Cindy Wong of Berkeley, which was at the time one of the big six in New York City, read it and called me up and offered a print contract for it. I didn't do
Nice.
shit. I didn't have to. I mean, after 10 years of rejections, 10 years of sending stuff right to publishers, I got a contract with a tiny little e-pub company, and the big boys were watching because they were paying attention to the little guys. And so I was completely delighted. And I ditched my stupid day job of the day and went right to Barnes and Noble and bought the great big book of agents. And basically went through and made a wish list, and then just started calling these agents saying, I have a book contract. What can you do for me? So it's annoying to say, but yeah, getting a book contract is the best way to get an agent, which is not helpful at all. I totally
It
get that.
really isn't. And like for me, because you mentioned the vicious cycle of you can't get a contract without an agent, you can't get an agent without a contract. It's so much worse these days. Except like on top of that, it's like I'm used to hearing like publishers will not sign you unless you have a social media following,
Yeah,
but you
yeah,
can't get a social media following unless you
yep,
have books. And it's just like what I hated that.
yeah,
And I remember, you had told me, you had prepared me when I was ready to start querying for Citadel,
yeah.
my debut novel, and how you were just like, oh, yeah, FYI, when I was your age and I was querying, I could have redone the entire apartment that you were born in Boston with
In
rejection
rejection.
letters. And I was like, okay, yeah. And so intellectually, I was prepared. And like I had done my research. I had a spreadsheet of my wish list
Yep.
of agents, which by the way, Ethan did pop up on, and I frost him off,
Yeah,
even though he
yeah.
was a fantasy and sci-fi agent. I'm just like, nope, mom's on it. No, thank you.
Little too
Um,
incestuous.
So I started going through it, and like after 20 to 30 ghosts or rejections, and it was
Yeah.
all the same copy paste,
Yep.
like thank
At
you for
this
giving us the
time.
opportunity. Yeah, we're not doing. I'm
Yep.
just like I am in a truly embarrassing number of Facebook groups for writing. So I posted the query template that I was using. Obviously I changed the details for each agent I gave it to.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically said, hey guys, what am I doing wrong? I've been rejected 25 plus times at this point in the last 3 months or however long it'd been. Pick this apart for me. Which, by the way, I do recommend people do that because that is a really great way to get good feedback
Yeah.
on your letter or process or whatever. And it
By
was,
the way, I don't know that you were doing anything quote unquote wrong.
I know, and so many people were
That's
just so many. Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
that's the
so
sour
right
part.
away you got to get out of that mindset, Chris. And anyone listening, it isn't rejection doesn't mean you suck. It doesn't
Oh
mean
yeah, no, I know
you're
that.
doing something wrong
I know,
necessarily. And
I knew that I didn't suck. I was just like, is there something that in my query letter
yeah,
that could use improvement? It was
which
one
led
way
to
for
an
me, like,
agent.
there's no control I have over this is the one thing I have control over. Let's see if
That's
I
true.
can
That's a good
improve
point.
it.
Yeah.
And that's what I was doing. And I did get some good feedback on that. I also got a ton of comments from people saying, "Oh, I've been rejected 100 plus times. I was
Yeah.
rejected 200 times. I just straight up self-published when I got tired of rejections."
Well, I hate
And
to bring her up, but J.K. Rowling got rejected. So, I
yep.
mean, you got to think about all those publishers when the first Harry Potter when it just
Oh
started
my
taking off
God,
and how
right.
much they must have been kicking themselves. But we won't
And how
talk
much
about her
they're
anymore.
not doing that now.
We are not going to discuss that person who will get hers. And
Yes.
but anyway, isn't that I mean, I
Yeah.
one of the books I clung to in my decade of rejections was it was a collection of rejection slips. And my favorite was we wouldn't touch your book with a barge pole. I mean, how mean is that? That's just so cruel. And like people, rejections from famous people. I mean, and from
Mhm.
back in the day, Henry Edgar Allan Poe rejections, like from
Mhm.
famous people who, and it was so comforting to sit and just flip through all these rejection slips for all these titans of
Giants,
literature.
yep.
So Rotten
Yeah,
Rejections is what it's called, and I've actually gifted it many times to I mentor, and I've given copies away so many times. It's a real mood lifter. But
nice.
you putting that out there, the query out there, led to you getting an agent and a
It
publishing
it did.
contract.
No, it led to the publisher first because one of the other authors in these writers groups was a guy named Rick who worked in
Yep,
like the
Blackstone
marketing.
Rick.
Yeah, he worked for Blackstone in like their marketing department, I think it was, but he also wrote his own books on the side. And
Hmm.
so he DMs me out of the blue and said, "Hey, I'm in this group. I saw your query. Your book's really interesting and what we're kind of looking for. Can you send me like the first 50 pages?" And of
Hmm.
course, I do my due. I checked, make sure there is a guy named Rick. He does actually work for Blackstone Publishing. There is actually a place called Blackstone Publishing. It's not a vanity press. Like I do
Yep, yep.
all of the cyber sleuthing first and then respond with, "Okay, give me your email address." And I sent him the 50 pages and I honestly thought I'm never gonna hear from him again. Like he's gonna ghost me like everyone else has ghosted me. But
Aw.
then he asked for the full manuscript, and then they offered me a contract. And I remember, God, I woke up because what the first thing I do when I wake up is I check my email,
Yes, you're
and
young.
I yes, and I
I don't.
like saw that
The first I do
Citadel
is to
offer
kiss.
was the subject line. I'm like, and I'm going through the email, and I barely even read the email before I forwarded it to you, and then I didn't even wait for you to read it. I called right
I
away, and I'm
know.
like, what?
And remember when I said, and Chris, this is a really nice advance. And you're like, oh, there's an advance. I just read the first sentence and called you. I had to tell you what your advance was because you hadn't even read that far into the letter. I love that story. I have shared that story more than once.
I know,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
And
So yeah.
gosh, yeah.
So you put it out there. They didn't know that you're a third generation writer and you took a
Nope,
chance and it paid off. So everyone listening, you got to be brave. You
you
got to
really
get
do,
it's
and you gotta have
sales.
endurance.
It's sales. Nobody likes to talk about it, but it's 100% sales. That was true 20 years ago. It's true today. All right,
Yep.
let's get back to questions because we're getting on segues.
Yeah, we are, but they're fun segues.
They are fun.
Okay. Um, what is your take on how the publishing industry has changed over the years? A person adds, I know in some ways things have gotten easier to get a book out there, but I still also can't help but notice how convoluted and ridiculous the process seems to be for a lot of authors.
Yeah, it's definitely changed. For example, I think the biggest change is that self-pubbed does not have the stigma it had 20, 30, 40 years ago. Nobody
Mhm.
blinks now. In fact, people, big publishing houses are watching. Um, Even self-pubs and swooping into well, for example, our self-pub cookbook it
Yep.
got some attention from the big guys, and that is pretty. I love that. I absolutely love that there's more faith in the self-pub things like Amazon Kin wow, I am just stammering like a beast. Things like the Amazon program that you and I enjoy using, but there's more than that. And so I do like that there's less stigma about that. It's a little easier to get seen if you have, the social media presence that a lot of these guys are seeing. So it's a little easier to be seen. 20 years ago, the best chance of being seen was mailing in snail mail. I'm sure
Yep.
people are listening who have no idea what I'm talking about, or running into a publisher or literally at a conference. That was the
Mhm.
best and most efficient way to get seen. And that is completely different now, fast forward 20 years later. So
Yep.
that's a big change too. It's still the greatest job in the world. It's still a wonderful industry, and it's still in a lot of ways slow, but on the other end of it, it's super fast. For example, you were outraged when you found out you had to wait for a paper check from Blackstone. You just couldn't understand why, and that's
Yep.
very typical. In some ways, they're
Yep.
ahead of the curve, and in some ways, you're waiting 2 weeks for them to mail a check, snail
Direct
mail a
deposit
check.
exists, guys.
I know. So yeah, I hope I answered the question effectively. It's still a wonderful industry, but yeah, you got to stay current, you got to stay in there, and it's still sales. You have to. 20 years ago, they wanted to know what you would do to help promote the book. That has not changed. What's changed
Mhm.
is how you can promote it. But I
Yep.
guarantee 20 years ago, 30 years ago, yeah, here's a contract, but what are you going to do to help us sell it? That was
Yep.
always part of it.
And now it's like even more like, some people are like, oh, I want to traditionally publish because like then the publisher will market my book for me. And I'm just like, no,
That's
no,
never
they
been
won't lift
true.
a finger these days.
Yeah,
Like
that's never been
you
true.
gotta
You
do it.
always have had to hustle and get out there. You have to go out to the bookstores. You have to, that's all. And you can choose not to do that, but you're
Mm,
unlikely to end up you're unlikely to be able to live off your royalties if you're disinclined to promote. That's always been true
exactly.
too.
You won't even have royalties if you don't promote,
Yeah,
frankly.
that's a good point.
Um, and when you say, stay relevant, note for the followers, don't use Gen AI. That's not a tool. That's just a
Oh,
thievery
ew,
thing.
that is not what I meant.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I'm sorry, I don't know if you caught the New York Times article about this so-called author who she's used generative AI to generate 200 books in the past year that she has sold in under various pseudonyms
Mhm.
and is all like, they're romance authors and like, and romance authors have to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to technology. And she's all just like, it's just a writing tool. And it's like,
No, it's
and it
not.
like Exactly. And
It's
yeah,
not.
it's caused
No,
some
it's
waves.
you're using a ghostwriter and you're pretending you're not, is what that
It's not
is.
even a ghostwriter, it's scraping other people's
Yeah.
can't get into it.
Well, that's yeah, and that's a whole other thing too. I was not yeah, when I said tech, I meant social media. I meant oh, look my laptop. Oh, look a giant phone. Oh, I meant everything but fucking AI. I
Yeah,
can't
maybe
make that.
spell check. That's
Yes, spell
about it.
thank you. Yes. So, oh, anyway.
Um, we have a couple of questions asking basically, how did you get into writing? What started it, or how did you decide to focus on romance, or why specifically paranormal romance?
I actually love, I'll answer both, but I love the latter question. Why did you choose to write paranormal romance? Because it's the same question Stephen King got. Why are you choosing to write horror? And his response is the same as mine. Why are you assuming I have a choice? Horror is what inspired him. That's what he wants to write. Same with paranormal romance. I just and what got me started was I was, as you know, Chris, I was an Air Force brat. I was, 8 schools in 6 years. I was always the new kid. And after a while, I didn't even bother making friends because what's the point? We're going to move in 6 months. So I wrote.
Mhm.
I would just keep to myself in the CAF, in the library, at study hall, just ignore everybody and write. And after a while, kids are like, "What are you always writing?" Because you're a C student, so it's definitely not homework, which was true. And I do like how they were like, they never considered for a moment that I was studying. We know that's not true. What are you doing? So I write fun short stories, and when they asked, I would let people read them. And a few days later, when I got to school, people were waiting at my locker asking what happens next. And
Mhm.
I got hooked on people asking what happens next. And about a year later, we had a writer in residence, and she was a playwright. And so she gave us all assignments to write short stories. And she told me, I'll never forget this. It was 40 years ago, but I'll never forget. She's like, you could write plays, you could do this for a living. And I thought, whoa, wait, yeah, I guess it is a job. It never occurred to me that it was a job and people could make money at it. And that was it. I never looked back. And I was 13, I think. That at
Mm,
that point, I was like, oh, it's a job and I can get paid, then I'm going to do it. Period. It
sign me
just
up,
took
yeah.
for yeah, I didn't get published, like properly published until I was 30. So that was a
Yep.
long apprenticeship. But yeah, I mean, I didn't have parents who wrote, but I knew I liked writing, and excuse me, I did, but my dad's occasional column, when you're a kid, you don't pay attention to stuff like that.
No,
So
I
yeah, that
barely paid
was
attention to Dad's column on Magic the Gathering, and I played Magic the
yeah,
Gathering.
exactly. Oh my lord. So yeah, so that's kind of how it all started. And so what I love the most is paranormal romance or just paranormal. And I just think it's really, I love taking a twist. I love taking the trope and flipping it on its head, like a mermaid who can't swim and is allergic to shellfish, or a vampire who's not an ancient Scottish lord. I remember thinking, why are all the vampires where are the secretary, where's the plumber who got turned and is now a vamp? I mean, why are they all these fancy pants ass hats? And so Betsy, the secretary who got fired and died on her 30th birthday, was born from that impulse to turn the trope on its head. And that's
That
what
is
I love
always
to do.
really,
Well,
really
for
fun.
example, Death has a daughter here in The Reluctant Reaper, but guess what? Death's daughter doesn't lives in a shithole apartment in Bloomington, Minnesota, and doesn't want to go to Minot, North Dakota, and take over the family business. She does her own thing, and so I try to put that in
Hoda?
everything I. She's yeah. And what's funny is because it's Death, the family's rich, and she doesn't have to live in a shithole apartment and drive a terrible car, but she does.
Yeah, 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 I mean, I would also avoid North Dakota. No offense to North Dakota, but there's nothing there.
Yeah, but that's one of the nice things about it.
Yeah, yeah, it's true, fair enough. I guess for me, like, it was just like, it wasn't necessarily watching you, although, like, because, like, you and Dad would read fantasy and sci-fi stories to me growing up as a
Yeah.
kid, and those so inspired me.
Oh
And I
yeah.
remember, like, even being like, there was like a project that we had when I was in third grade, I think it was, and it was like, this is how like what a good school Hastings, Kennedy Elementary was, which was the like we got to like self-published our own short stories, and self-published in big air quotes. We got like 5 copies each,
Yeah.
like
No,
one,
hey,
one,
it's I think that's outstanding.
and it was really fun. And like I was so excited. And my story was about it was a snake, and owl and a dog that got stuck on an island in the middle of the Mississippi River, and like the owl had like a broken wing, and like they had to work together to like get off the island and go back to their homes. And it was really fun, and I was really proud of it. And then like the day the stories were set to go to the publisher, I realized, oh shoot, I need to add like another scene because like they need to try to get off the island and fail first. And
Mhm.
then like and then they can try again and it'll actually work. Like I didn't understand story structure
Yeah, of
or
course.
like or archetypes or anything, but I understood that much where it's like, I can't have it be that easy for them where they're just waiting for the wing to heal. Like
Yeah.
they gotta fail first.
Mhm.
And so, and I tell my teacher this, like, I got to rewrite it real quick. And my teacher is like, this, like, it has to go out by noon. And I'm like, okay, I'll write it over recess. I gave up my lunch recess to sit in that classroom by myself, rewriting the
Yeah.
beginning, adding the middle scene,
You
and
couldn't
then rewriting it. And
stand
like,
for it to go out like that. Absolutely.
yes, I like it needed to be better. And my
Oh, you're
teacher
preaching to
is
the
like,
choir, honey.
I know, right? And my poor teacher who must have been like, in like she let me do it. She was definitely watching the clock, a little bit impatient and pushing me through, but like in hindsight, she was probably just like, I can't tell her no because I
Yeah.
can't smother this. Like
Yeah,
we
yeah, I
need
think
to
that's
encourage this as
lovely.
much as we can, but also we have a new deadline. Welcome to
Well, and
publishing.
and Dad read you Lord of the Rings. He read you all these,
Mhm.
all these things that his mom read to him. So we were completely unsurprised when your love of fantasy came through in your work.
Yeah. There's gosh, Citadel. I don't hesitate to say it now because of recent online drama, but,
Mm.
I the first draft it's okay, it's kind of funny, but, like, the first draft of Citadel, I wrote it when I was 12, and growing up it was 300 pages of pure shit that I made my poor dad read, and the reason I made my dad read it and not you was because I had grown up watching, the mom writes the book, dad edits it,
Yeah.
mom gives it to the publisher, she's a best-selling author. So my thought process at 12 years old was if I give my story to dad and he edits it, I will then send it to a publisher and become a best-selling author.
Well,
And
it's
it technically
logical.
worked, it just took 16 years. Although it's not a bestseller yet, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, and he did, what I really appreciated then and now was that he treated it seriously, like, he
Yeah.
read every single page, and I know he did because there was red ink on every single page,
Oh God,
and
he edits me with a purple pen, and I just dread the sight of it.
And then at the end of it, he took because I didn't print it double-sided as I should have. I printed it
Yeah,
one-sided, which,
yeah,
ugh, but he turned the back pages over and wrote me, like, the compliment sandwich that
yeah,
stretched 7 pages long of,
yeah,
like, "Here's all the things you did really well. Here's all the things you need to improve on, and all the things you don't." And what stuck with me then was, like, he specifically said, "This is how I give feedback to like because he was like some manager or whatever when he was
yeah.
working for the Department of Economics and Employment for Minnesota. Like that, he was like, this is how I give feedback to my team. And that stuck with me because I'm just like, oh, he's treating me like an adult. He's
Yeah.
treating this project like an adult wrote it.
Mhm.
So even though I was a little disheartened by the fact that, oh, this is gonna take so much work
Oh,
to
yeah, of
like
course.
make good, it was still really
He saw you.
uplifting because of the exactly, he saw me and he saw the work and he saw the potential, and it was just like, you just gotta keep grinding
Yeah,
and, may when you're an adult and you've got a little more life experience and writing experience under your belt, you're gonna crush it.
and he
And
was right. And I'll tell
he
you
was
what,
right.
I know I always would have been published, but I think it would have taken longer without your dad's excellent editing.
Mm,
I absolutely think it would have taken longer to break through if I didn't live with a writer and editor who could be ruthlessly loving
yep,
and yeah, who just, this is why I thought this part sucked, but this is why this part got all the hearts in the world. And that's great. And so for the aspiring authors listening to this, beta readers, 100%. I mean,
yep,
it maybe sounds like it goes without saying, but you got to have fresh eyes that don't belong to you. You have to
yep,
have eyes that don't belong to you, and preferably eyes that aren't related to you looking at your
yeah,
stuff. Because when
yeah.
mommy reads it and says it's perfect, it's not perfect. I'm sorry to introduce everyone's mom, but she's lying when she tells you it's perfect and it doesn't need any changes. A first draft. She's lying
Yep.
out of love, but it is a lie. She's a dirty, filthy liar. All right. I think I made my point.
Yeah, no, having a bunch of authors in the family definitely made it so, like, I could always like, unlike most authors who, like, I can't trust that what my mother says, I could actually trust that my parents were being honest when they said, "This part is good and this part needs work," because you guys got it. Okay, here's an interesting one. Are there any details that looking back you would change if you were to write Betsy from scratch? Like, is there anything you feel didn't age well?
Yeah, there's one particular thing that didn't age well. Betsy called somebody the R word, and or like or as a descriptive term or whatever. Which I just didn't think much of at the time. I got a letter from the then president of the Association for Intellectually Challenged Adults. A very polite letter explaining how completely out of line that was, and in the future could I not be such a putz. And it was very chastening, and I have never, ever, ever even, I don't even let a bad guy say that word in my work.
Oh, wow.
That's how completely, it never occurred to me. I just never thought of it as the N word. Yeah. The R word. In my stupidity, I didn't think it was that big a deal. I completely understand now that it's a slur, just like any nasty ass, unacceptable slur. And I would want to, but this might sound arrogant. That's the only thing I would go back and change. It really is. And I'm sure there are readers going, really? Because you could have done, this could have been better, or that could have been better. In my opinion, that's the one thing I would change.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, it's interesting because, like, society definitely treats those two words differently. I mean, you can't even say the N word on television, but the R word pops up on South Park every other week.
Oh, and 10 years ago, it was even more. It was a lot more prevalent. 15 years ago, it was more prevalent. Betsy, the first time Betsy came out in 2003. So
yeah. 23 years ago.
I'm thinking, I'm doing, is that right? 2005, sorry, 2005. So
21 years ago.
So 20 years ago, it was it's so much that I thought it was not the nicest word, but I didn't think it was any more of an insult than asshat or jerkweed. I just, I thought the R word was just a completely acceptable, rude insult, but not a slur. And and so I will never forget that. I don't have it anymore, but it's the first thing that popped into my head. And this was 20 years ago. So, yeah.
And you've told me that story before. And as I was reading that question, I'm like, I think I know what she's going to say.
Right.
And as someone who, like, has a bachelor's in social justice and who, like, works those themes into writing and thus works with those people and different communities all the time, that's definitely, like, the correct response, where it's like, we don't, like, if an author or creator, and I've done this myself too a couple of times on, like, on skits. Like, there was one episode, CaFae Latte, where Drek's ADHD, it wasn't communicated particularly well, and it came across sounding like I thought that ADHD was a fake thing, and not a real cognitive issue.
Oh, I'm sorry. What dumbass thinks that in this day and age? Sorry.
But yeah, no. And so luckily, so there were quite a few comments, and I'm just like, okay, next episode, we're changing that, and I'm clarifying my point. But, like, that's like honestly, it's like one of those things, like, we can't expect anyone to be perfect. And, like, it's always a learning experience. And it's like, if a creator goofs up, either by accidentally putting a slur they didn't realize was such a slur in their work, or by misrepresenting a group of people, or, I goof up a few times with a Muslim character because I grew up Christian and not Muslim. So, like, a lot of their practices, it just kind of slips by me, even with Google. I'll have a bunch of people in my comments saying, like, FYI, this is the correct way to do it. And I'll be like, shit. All right, I'll get it on the next one. And
now I know we're supposed to be talking up the Reluctant Reaper, but can I say I love that so many of your readers read Citadel and thought you were neurodivergent because you did
did you miss the author's note where I said I wasn't?
You did your research, and I just love that so many people just assumed you were walking the walk and talking the talk, as opposed to just being really fucking great at research. I loved that. I just adore that. I thought that was really
I get a little hint of pride, a bit of pride too, when people are just like, "Wait, you're not autistic?" And I'm just like,
yeah.
"Nope, I just do my research and I get as many sensitivity readers as I can possibly grab."
No, I'm just tired and really slow to. Yeah, exactly. I just loved that. I really love that people just assumed that you were neurodivergent. I just thought that was outstanding and
Mhm.
a testament to your hard work.
Thank you.
There, sorry, we can
Yeah,
talk about my work now. I had to throw in another. I had another mom moment, so sorry.
that's totally fine. There's actually only one more Patreon question, and
Oh,
then I can
cool.
release you
My
to your
lunch.
to your lunch and whatever else is going on. Um, which is, would you and your mom be open to co-writing a book
Yes.
together that isn't the cookbook, but like an actual novel?
Yes.
Like,
Hey, if I can work
I
with
would
your
be
dad, I can work with you.
That's true. Dad is more of a like I only hesitate a little bit for like for a couple of reasons. One, you are a pantser, and I
Yep.
am like I plan like it's an Olympic sport. And for those who aren't in the author community, there's a spectrum where all writers fall, where it's like, how much do you outline and prepare before you start writing versus how much do you just make it up as you literally go along with no prep, no work, no research, no nothing, and you end up writing yourself into a corner because you didn't outline, mother.
Yeah, that's the way. That's how you know you're alive, Chris. It'll be fine. We'll work it out.
Ugh. So that's first
Actually,
thing.
let me
But
just say though, if we're doing an outline, I actually really enjoy writing chapters from outlines too.
okay, so I could outline it and then you could just write
And I
it.
could handle
And
the sex scenes, and I'm just
okay,
saying.
that's the other thing though. It's just like what genre, like if it's dominated by, if your name is dominating the title, people are going to expect a romance with probably with at least one erotic scene. And if I'm dominating the title, they're not gonna expect that. So
But
like, do we even have it be
here's what's great about us. I can write fantasy. You can't write romance. It
not
doesn't have
really,
to be a
no.
romance.
Yeah,
So
that's true, very much so, like, it's one of those things where it's just, like, if we were to do it, like, obviously it'd have to be fantasy and or sci-fi,
yeah.
and if there is a romance, if there is romance or at least a romantic subplot, which does pop up in my books from
Hmm.
time to time, I would, like, insist on it being queer,
Oh yeah, it
like
can be queer and it can be sweet. There are different kinds of
yes,
yeah. It doesn't even have to be explicit at all.
exactly,
Anyway,
yeah, so
I would love that. And we're actually going to do we're working together this year on the sequel to the CaFae Latte cookbook.
good book,
But yeah,
yep.
I would love to tackle fiction with you someday. But we
Yeah,
both have
no,
huge to-do lists, so it's one
I
of those
know,
things where
right,
we
just
want
like,
to, but it would be lower on the list.
it really is, don't like, I have, like, 3 book series and 1 online series
Same.
that
Yeah, I want to.
yeah.
Yeah, if I'm going to do jump into fiction, actually, I want to do my I Hate Rhubarb cookbook this spring. But if I were to jump into fiction again, I would want to do book 2 of a contemporary asset. I'd want to tackle Jane
Mm,
Seymour and Anne of Cleves.
heck yeah. No,
Yeah,
oh gosh, Anne of Cleves, she would have been such a good queen.
she would have been an outstanding queen, and she won the Henry VIII lottery,
She really
and
did.
she
Flipped out, and
absolutely.
she knew it.
Yep, she won the lot. She won that lottery without question. And I would love to put a modern spin on that. So if I were to jump into a big fictiony project this year, it would either be the sequel to The Reluctant Reaper, depending on what Blackstone wants, or I would jump back into contemporary asset.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm out of questions, and you said you wanted this limited to 45 minutes to an hour. So,
I did. Yeah, the dogs are penned up and I haven't eaten anything today. So I'm ready to, so sorry to cut you short, doll, but I think 45
it's
minutes to an hour is a
it's
lot.
fine. I mean, like I said, my patrons get like I always ask my patrons every time I plan one of these CaFae convos,
Hmm.
what questions do you guys want me to ask? And they gave this to me last month when I thought this would be released on the first Wednesday of the month.
Hey, you
And
got sick.
then
I got sick. Stuff
oh,
happens.
it's so much stuff. Like the universe just didn't, and then there were technological issues this morning. Like, the universe just did not want this to happen.
Yeah, yeah. When
Um,
I called and you were like, can I call you back in 10 minutes? So like, yeah, sure.
like
So
give me,
I'm
oh gosh,
delighted
yeah, no.
we finally got a chance to do it. I can't wait for next month when we go to the No Kings protest in Minneapolis together
Heck
with the
yeah, heck
dogs.
yeah. Yes, the
And
protest
yeah,
peace. ICE
I
will never
know
see him coming.
they will never see them coming. Grr. All right, doll. If you're done with me, then I guess I'm done with you. Oh, that sounded
Yes, I
nicer in
am.
my
All
head.
right. All of Maryjanice Davidson's, her website, her socials, the books that she is currently wants you to buy and read are going to
All
be
of them.
linked in the description of this video. But there you have 70, Mom. I can't
Yeah,
put
that's true.
all of them in the
Yep.
description.
Yeah.
There's a caption limit. But yeah, all the new ones will be linked in the description of this video, as well as some of my stuff. Goodbye,
Yay.
lovelies.